I'll call to order the meeting of Monday, December the 11th. If the clerk would please take the roll.
Councilmember Archibald.
Here.
Councilmember Ashford.
Present.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Here.
Councilmember Warden.
Here.
Mayor Rep.
Here. You have the minutes from the regular meeting of November the 27th before you. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Ashford. Is there a second? Second. A second from Councilmember Lamb. And is there additions or deletions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes will stand as submitted. We do have two presentations tonight. Would the clerk please read the first one?
Planning and Community Development Director David Haynes and staff members Nicole Smith and Katie Walls will give a presentation on the Pride in Port Huron program accomplishments for 2017.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This evening, I have with me two great people who are instrumental in these programs and the funding that we see through the Pride in Port Huron. I'd like to introduce our, Community Development Coordinator, Nicole Smith, and a Community Development Specialist, we have Katie Walls. And I'll let them take over and explain to you what programs have been going on and the improvements to our community.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. We are here to give you a brief summary of some of the community development accomplishments this past year. 28 families became homeowners thanks to the Urban Pioneer Program, which provides up to $5,000 for down payment assistance to eligible first-time homebuyers. The Affordable Housing Program is where we buy and rehab homes and then sell them to eligible first-time homebuyers in partnership with the Port Huron Neighborhood Housing Corporation. 3 homes have been renovated and sold, and 2 homes are in progress. Here we have 1502 Howard Street that was renovated and sold to a first-time homebuyer under the Affordable Housing Program. This property was a tax foreclosure, and it had 14 prior blight complaints in the previous 4 years. And here we have 1318 18th Street that was also renovated and sold to a first-time homebuyer, and it was purchased through the Property Acquisition Program. This program gives government agencies the option to purchase homes at a discount before going on the open market. We currently have 2 more rehab projects that we are working on. 1515 7th Street was donated to us as it had a fire on the 2nd story. 733 White Street was purchased through the tax foreclosure auction this year. Here we have a property on Superior Street that was demolished using blight elimination funds. If you recall, we received $1 million to purchase and demo properties in the spring of 2015. We expended all the funds, completing 46 demolitions. We applied for another demolition grant earlier this year and received the max award of $250,000.
With our neighborhood preservation programs, 28 families received grant funding this year. 14 of those homes received our facade grant to repair the exterior of their home. 4 went to our emergency repair grant, which is available for elderly households. And 10 went towards our rental rehab grants, which requires a 25% match for exterior repair. We sent out 212 paint vouchers and 94 were redeemed. Here we have 1527 Union Street. Improvements included vinyl siding the house and garage, replacing the roof and porch. And here we have 61 13th Street. Improvements included vinyl siding the home, replacing the roof and porch repair. 1421 Nelson Street was one of our rental rehabs. Improvements included vinyl siding, a new roof, and porch repair. This year we spent $66,000 on our sidewalk replacement. We want to say thank you to all of our partners who continue to support our efforts to revitalize Port Huron, and City Council for continuing and supporting these programs every year.
Thank you. Is there anyone on council who has any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. You young ladies did a fine job here. I like to see that. And come to think of it, I do have a question. I see where actually they're kind of all over the place, north end, south end, the central. And so do you do that by design? Or how does that process happen?
Yes, this year projects were done on a citywide basis, and we
Okay.
do take referrals from our code enforcement.
Oh, okay. And and while we are just looking at the houses, just the single ones, do you take into account the whole neighborhood?
Yes,
What
we
does the
try, we
neighborhood
try
look like?
to, every year, we try to target a certain neighborhood, although our programs are on a citywide basis. Sometimes you'll see us just focused in one neighborhood. For this presentation, we just kind of pick and choose a few different homes throughout the city to broadcast to you guys.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Great job.
Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Councilmember Warden.
it's outstanding. Is the 28, for the home buyer program under the Urban Pioneer, was that in this last year? Is it
Yes.
28?
Yes.
That's a pretty good number, so that's a great program. Is that the funds, is this as of the end of the year?
That was as of January 1st till now.
Okay, year to date, that's wonderful. So is there still some funds available and people?
Yes, there is, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
Just, Mayor
Yes.
Rep, just out of curiosity, how long have you been in your positions? with
I
the
have
city?
been with the city for 8 years.
And then I just started, I took over for Jasmine. Yeah.
Good job. It's nice to see these projects done in the city. Thank you. We will move on to presentation number 2.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford will provide an update regarding the Blue Water Area Transit.
Okay, my fellow council members, I know we have a long agenda, so I'm going to try to, make this still quality presentation, yet be mindful of the time frame here. This is a year-end report of the transit, where actually I serve as the city's representative. And what I would like to go over first is appreciation, and I'm going to be going over the 2017 year-end report, which covers the period of October the 1st to 2016 through September the 30th, 2017. And then I would like to capture some highlights of 2017 and end with sharing a piece of unfolding history. And also, as a tagline, we have here that we use throughout our country. The tagline is, "Where public transit goes, the community grows." If you can move it and put it there, you can just envision the difference that transit can bring about in making a difference in our world today. So with the appreciation part, I'd like to just briefly take a moment to thank the mayor for my appointment and my fellow council members for supporting the vote to serve as your Blue Water representative. A special thank you to my fellow council members sitting here next to me, Rico, for serving as my delegate. And Rico actually did, he was there with me every meeting, and I got to thinking, I thought, now why is he here if I'm here? Is he watching me or what? But he was there religiously. Both he and I were attending the meetings, and he wasn't there watching me, he's just getting up to speed on things. So I appreciate that, and throughout these 4 years, he has been there, giving me input. So while I was there physically, he was there mentally, I was just sharing what he shared with me to be a part of that. And I would also like to acknowledge the Blue Water staff, Jim Wilson, who is a general manager, Dave McElroy, who is an assistant general manager, and the director of finance, Linda Bruckner, who's the chairperson, and she's also a trustee of the Fort Gratiot Township. The year-end report, okay, and the year-end report is so significant. The last time I did this, we did a mid-year review according to our goal session, where we were going to do a mid-year and also a year-end. And then I got to thinking, it's a lot of data, a lot of numbers I'm giving you, but the significance in the number, it helps us when we go out for grants, and it also helps with the performance of the center. Why are we there? Are we getting any business or that nature? So I just want the people to know, when you hear this, it's it's for a reason. When you get data, it helps drive your service that you have. So the first one is this is in two components. The service part is the hours of transit service. It means how many hours are we out there? That's 117,246. And this is an eye chart. I don't really expect you to see that. And then the miles of service that our buses go are 1,797,430. So all these buses that we have, that's the cumulative miles within that given period of time. And the passengers trips that we take is 1,308,763. So we do have people riding our buses. And the second part I'd like to cover as part of that this update is the number of employees. We have some great employees. We keep them trained, and they're very effective and efficient. We have 127 employees over at the Blue Water Transit System. We have 80 buses, and our gallon of CNG, that's our compressed natural gas fuel, produced at the Blue Water Area Transportation Fueling, is 352,786. And you know that's always good for the environment when we're talking about natural gas. The transit center over here, that sits over here in front of SC4, the visitors that have come in there is a total of 91,187. That's how many people are in and out of there. And the funds that are distributed to nonprofit transit partners are 1,419,836. So those are our data, numbers that we use when we apply for grants and when we do things such as I'm doing tonight, sharing them with you. And some of our highlights are as follows. Plans are underway for an outdoor public space improvement at our downtown bus center. We wonder, we have it just sitting there, you drive by there, it's a pretty building and all that, but we wrestle with the fact that what can make this really work, people become attracted to it. You just don't just sit it there. So what we do have in plans to do is that we're going to, in the future, we're going to put some sails, high sails over there, some covering over on this side of it, on the the east side of it, where that space is there, and make it sort of like a little campus type, or I don't know, for the sake of better words, but anyway, it would be something to that effect, so it could draw more interest there and more people coming around there, because we have the Sail-In Cafe over there, and the Sail-In Cafe is a cafe where you can get, various food items and stuff like that. So that has always been sort of like not a thorn, but it's just been something that we wrestle with, trying to make that extra, magnetic. And then another piece of that magnetic is to embrace somehow the downtown Port Huron community in with that transit center, to bring some more visibility there, to be more creative. And then the next thing that we have as a highlight, we have contractors, a contractor have been selected to lead the negotiation terms for the Amtrak facility study. We held 2 public meetings in October, and the study is expected to be published in the spring of 2018. So at this point, we have no location that is have been selected for the Amtrak station. And then the third bullet here, we're in partnership with the City of Port Huron. We help implement the Zaxter Bike Share Program that started through July through September. And as a result, we had 445 trips were taken by 289 members. So, and then we're going to have to do some work on that because the bikes go into hibernation at this time, and we need to start getting ready for the incoming 2018 to see if the city is still going to continue to do that. So we're looking forward to that. And then the next bullet is improvements made for the SC4 bus stop on Erie Street. We've included, this is the transit center, Blue Water Transportation. We've included benches, lighting, and sidewalk improvements, and this work was completed in August of 2017. And then we were also glad that we celebrated our 30th millionth, I hope I'm saying the right, passenger. So that person we had, we forgot the balloons, but she jumped off the bus, and we were supposed to holler, "Oh, you're the 30 million person." She said, "What?" Okay, I'm glad somebody know what we were doing. So we celebrated that. And the next bullet is we redesigned our Blue Water area transportation website, and that website is B as in boy, W as in we, B as in boy again, U as in us, S as in Sam.com. So we made that more friendlier when you go into the website, and more inclusive of a whole lot of more things that you would be interested in as far as transit. And the next bullet, we're continuing to foster and embrace partnerships within the St. Clair County at large. We have contracted services through CMH, Community Mental Health, YMCA, just to name a few. The next bullet, we are financially successful at this point, large in part due to the support of our millage that you passed. We couldn't be this successful and do all the things that we do to include our whole St. Clair County, not just the city of Port Huron, but that's due to the millage and then our state and federal funding sources that we have at our hands through our grants. Jim Wilson, the general manager, is sort of like a maverick. If his legacy had to leave anything, he has something. I guess he's with Nancy Wisner and Kim Harmer on that grant. It must be something in the air here in Port Huron, because they do a good job when you write those grants and we receive those funds. And the next bullet is a Blue Water Area Transportation Ridership. That's a big one for us. We have increased by 7.6%, while nationally they are announcing an alarming decrease of 4.38. And then I did some research. It probably wouldn't matter to us because we're doing good, but still you want to know why they have decreased, and this certainly is another presentation, but they have identified 4 areas nationally. The first one was erosion of time competitiveness, 2 is reduced affinity, and 3, erosion of cost competitiveness, and the 4th one is external factors. And so all that is probably different language to you, but it computes to, it's a different day and age now. The cost factor, you're talking about money, old money versus new money, and how they're changing it. And you're talking about the people now in the White House don't have that kind of a association to push transportation like we need it from a federal aspect. They think that it ought to be the state level and the local level to take care of all that kind of stuff. So what we're doing to counter that is that we're trying to put something in play where we become more advocates on the local level in a grassroots form to try to fight some of that to continue to be more successful for the future for transportation. So with that, I'd like to thank you for giving me this time. Again, thanks to Rico, and if you have any questions, we'd be more than glad to answer them. And the last bullet was that unfolding history, and while I know I couldn't get it all said today, we have put a booklet together here, and it gives you everything that you should know about the Transit Center. If someone asks you, you have the year-end report here, and you have a profile at a glance, and you have pictures of all the highlights, the projects of 2017, and you have all the difference between the state and local funding that we get, and you just have everything that you should know about what makes your transit center a transit center. And with that, I thank you, Mayor and Council, for your attention.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone on council that has any questions? Job well done.
Thank
Looks
you.
like they're doing a good job over there at Blue Water Area Transit, which they always
Did
have.
Cindy get one?
No, Cindy
For
did not
her
get one.
files? Okay, thank you.
Glad to see that our ridership and everything is up.
Yeah, thank you.
Very nice. We'll move on now to public hearings.
To hear comments and suggestions for updates regarding the draft 5-year Parks and Recreation Plan.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the city council this evening on this public hearing on the Parks and Recreation Plan? Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. We will now move on to public comment. This is the time, if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on any items on the agenda or under our jurisdiction, you can come forward, give us your name, and you have 4 minutes. Seeing no one, I'll declare public comment closed. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Archibald. Is there a second?
Support.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford.
Mayor Rep,
Yes.
we remove item number 9, the quarterly financial report that's on the consent agenda.
There's one. We only have one item on the consent agenda then, but we've already got a motion and a second, so we will take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. And the item that was on the consent agenda was to approve the reappointment of Jack Valier and B. Mark Neal to the McMorran Civic Center Authority, the term expiring December 31st, 2021. So now we will move to from the city manager, number 1.
Receive and file the comprehensive annual financial report for the year ending June 30th, 2017.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Second?
Councilmember Lamb, I wonder if we could have a presentation on that?
On the audit?
Well,
Yeah,
we have-
absolutely.
we
Since
have
they're
them
here.
sitting
yeah.
here, we don't want to not
Yeah,
talk here.
absolutely. We have our representatives from Plant Moran with a short presentation to make regarding our audit.
I don't want them to just sit there and not talk
Thank you
to
very
us.
much. I appreciate it. Well, we do have some graphs, so we at least want to give those some attention, but we will be sensitive to your time. So,
problem.
good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Lisa Mineta, governmental partner with Planta Moran, and with me tonight is Crystal Simpson, who is a senior manager with our firm and oversees the day-to-day operations of the financial statement audit. So we're very happy to be here tonight to present to you. I do want to mention, so you do have in front of you this 200-page document. We will not read this cover to cover. Do want to mention, though, and point out, to make sure that you're aware the amount of effort that goes into this document by your finance team. Not to minimize our contribution, since we do spend hundreds of hours and over multiple weeks auditing and testing the data that's included in this financial report, in order to give our opinion on the financial statement. But the document itself and all of the information contained therein is the result and is fully processed and put together and accumulated and footnotes researched and all of that by your finance team, led by Ed Brennan and Bobby Seppo, and they do a marvelous job in doing that. We do contribute our opinion to this document, which is one of the earlier pages where we once again have what we call an unmodified opinion. Which basically means that these financial statements, this document is in accordance with all applicable governmental accounting standards and is fairly stated. What that doesn't tell you is how the audit process itself went, which of course I am pleased to report that it was a very smooth, once again, audit process. Things went according to the plan that we would have communicated to you before we started the audit. There weren't any big significant surprises that came up as a result of it, and we didn't have any real material adjustments to the statements. So that also tells you that the information that you're getting throughout the year is being monitored by your finance department and following accounting rules throughout the year, so you can feel comfortable with that. We do have a slide presentation to give you some highlights from a financial perspective, since that is a very important output of the audit process, is just to know how did the financials turn out. From a very high overview, From the general fund perspective, you'll see the financial results. I'm not going to start talking about them yet. Crystal will do that. But the financial results are very consistent for the years that we're showing. We see stability, and that really is a testament to the hard work that the city has done in addressing this now very much reduced revenue stream that you see, or that has become the norm now after many years of, thank you very much. Thank you. Of financial challenges. But certainly, we know that there are challenges yet to come. So the last few years, we have talked a lot, and I think even most of a work session last year talking about legacy costs. And of course, that is something we'll see in the slides. There's been a lot of talk about that. Certainly, the problem has not been solved. There are communities that are at varying levels of awareness and effort that's been put toward trying to fund these legacy costs, trying to keep up with pension contributions that are expected to increase significantly, and tackling that huge burden of retiree health care and that large liability. And we know that the state legislature is looking at that and looking at some legislation also to continue to increase that focus and that attention being paid. So still a long ways from a solution, certainly. The city of Port Huron is not alone in that. It's a struggle throughout the state and the country, and certainly something that I know is on your radar screen as you look multiple years out in the future, is how to continue to address that challenge. So at this point, Crystal will go through the financial results in a little more detail, but certainly feel free to ask questions as she goes through it, or if you have any at the end as well.
Thank you.
All right, so as Lisa mentioned, the financial statements are almost 200 pages long now, so we thought it would be best to look at it at a graph presentation. We can also put in the prior year's data to compare between the years as well. So this graph shows your general fund revenue for 2013 through 2017. In total, it was about $22.7 million. You can see almost $13 million of that, or 57%, was tax revenue. Tax revenue did increase from 2016 to 2017. Most of that was related to the increase in income taxes of about $300,000, and that was offset by a decrease in property taxes of about $210,000. So it is important just to keep in mind, because of Proposal A, you won't see property taxes come back as fast as they did decline. It's limited to the lesser of 5% or inflation, which traditionally has been less than 3%. So just keep in mind that there will be a period of time before you even get back to previous year's tax revenue. The second largest revenue source is the federal and state sources. Of that $4.6 million, 3.5 of that is state shared revenue, and that was up from 2016 by about $132,000. This graph shows general fund expenditures, again from 2013 through 2017. Total expenditures were about $22.3 million as of the end of June of 2017. You can see public safety is the most significant expenditure, just over, or at about $14 million. The expenditures are about 63% of the total expenditures for the year, and they did increase about $1.2 million from 2016. And that was largely related to salaries and fringe increases. The second largest is your general government of about $3.3 million, and that did also increase about $181,000 from last year, and once again related to salaries and fringe increases. This graph has the total revenues for each year, the expenditures, which both of those include transfers as well, and then the total fund balance for general fund. You can see the total fund balance at the end of June was about $4.7 million. That's about 21% of your current year expenditures. So what that means is if the city were to stop taking in any revenue, you could go about 2.5 months on the fund balance that you have. The GFOA best practice is to have 2 months, so your 2.5 months would be just over that best practice. This shows the governmental funds expenditures and fund balance. The non-spendable portion of fund balance, this is if you have prepaids before the end of the year, you have some cemetery endowment, and then Section 108 funds that you received. The portions are restricted by a third party, is the blue line. So these relate to streets, some law enforcement, if you have rubbish collection fees that can only be used for a specific purpose, Those are included in the restricted portion. And then the remaining fund balance is in the assigned or committed by council, or it's in that unassigned or the light blue shaded area. And this totaled about $6.5 million at June 30th, and that was up about $361,000 from last year, just the assigned, committed, and unassigned portion of your fund balance. This graph takes a look at more of the long-term view of the city. It wants to know, are you charging enough to cover the full cost of providing services to residents? So what you'll see here that we haven't seen on the previous slides is long-term items. So the assets on the left-hand side, they bring in capital assets, so your building, equipment, other things you won't see in your governmental funds. And then on the right-hand side is your liabilities. So you can see the net pension liability is the brick-looking layer. That there is about $56.7 million of your total liabilities. So as Lisa mentioned, these legacy costs are very significant. And then that top layer on the right-hand side is the estimate of what your liability will be next year for the new governmental accounting standard that essentially takes retiree health care and follows the pension standards from a couple years ago. And that's estimated for your governmental funds to be approximately $38.5 million. So you can see that those legacy costs are the most significant liabilities that you have. By bringing on those liabilities, it does look like it will take your net position negative by about $16 million. Again, this is the long-term view. This isn't the budgeted funds that you're used to seeing, like general fund and major and local streets. It's just on a long-term view of the city. And like Lisa mentioned, you're not alone. We've seen a lot of communities bringing on these large liabilities and putting them in that negative net position state. The next slide has the same information. Oops, did I go too far? This is for the business type activities. So this would be your sewer fund, your water fund, and any of those other enterprise type funds. You can see for their portion, the liabilities are a lot smaller. So their portion of the net pension liability is about $14.2 million. And then the retiree health care portion is about $9.6 million. So once they bring on the retiree health care, they'll still be in a positive net position. And you can see most of their assets are made up of capital assets because you have the water lines, sewer lines, and other type assets such as that. The next slide has the total combined city. So if you bring all of the assets and all the liabilities, so we're combining governmental and that business type into one. Again, you can see the net pension liability there, the brick shaded one. And then the retiree health care on the top right-hand side. So if you combine them together, you'd still have a positive net position by about $59 million. So as a combined entity, overall, it's much stronger. And then to continue on the legacy cost theme here, the pension annual required contribution, we've seen that jump up a little bit. So we've presented the actual payments from 2013 through 2017 here. And then projected out from 2018 through 2022 based on what your current actuarial valuation estimated. So you can see, just keep in mind as you're budgeting that number is elevating quite quickly. And this is just the minimum required contribution. It's not if you decided to fund any additional money. This graph looks at the water fund. This follows more of a business type model. So on the left-hand side, is how it's presented within your financial statements. So from that perspective, you can see your operating revenue does exceed your operating expenses. If we look at it in what's called a modified accrual basis, so if we looked at it more of like a governmental type fund, off to the right you can see the expenditures actually do exceed your revenue. And this is because of the debt payments that you have to make, as well as the capital outlay that you have to purchase. So again, if you're doing any improvements on the lines, or if you're making debt payments, it does use cash. It's just not shown as an expense on your income statement because it all flows through the change in the balance sheet. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at that fund. And this is the same information for the sewer fund. Again, you can see on the left-hand side, the operating revenue does exceed expense. On the right-hand side, this fund just slightly has expenditures over revenue, so it's in a little bit better shape than water fund as far as that's concerned. Are there any questions on the graphs that I could answer for you?
Anyone have any questions?
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Warden.
Actually, appreciate you guys coming today. I just had a question on your letter.
Okay. Oh, yes,
Are you guys going to do that as well?
Absolutely, certainly. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I just was looking at, this is, I guess, your observations. And, again, we just got this right here before
Yeah,
the meeting,
absolutely,
so.
absolutely.
But I like to
Certainly.
look through this. Again, there was a disagreement again on page 3. There, I think I brought it up last year as well. Just about how they're, how they account for a couple things.
Yes, so
You guys
there,
can touch on that?
yeah, absolutely. So there is an item related to how state shared revenue is recorded on the modified accrual basis, and really that is essentially, the standards would say you should record a receivable and a liability for a payment that's received after the end of the year, and that isn't reflected in the city's financial statements, but ultimately that doesn't impact the net income, if you will, and so it's really just something that would inflate the balance sheet a bit, and so we've talked to Ed about that multiple years, and that's the preference of the city is to present it that way. So we point it out, but it ultimately doesn't change the bottom line, if you will.
Yeah, I think that was the same as last year, but consistent.
it's a
And then
recurring
the next page, corrected or uncorrected misstatements.
Yes.
Just a section down here about, in addition, the revenue related to a sale of an easement was recorded in full as revenue. And then you had where the revenue, you had is this a comment to them?
Yes, so this
or
is
suggestion?
yes, so this was an accounting matter that we discussed, again, with the Finance Department prior to the audit starting, where our interpretation of the standards would be that that should be recorded over the period of time of the lease, and the city had taken the position that it was earned at the time that the sale took place. So again, it was more of an agree to disagree, but we need to bring that to your attention, that that was an item that we discussed with your Finance Department.
To clarify that further, that was the sale of our ground lease for our cell phone tower. I believe at Court Street Pool for $500,000, just around $500,000. They wanted to record that on a 50-year amortization, so essentially take $500,000 divided by 50 years and have that as receivable. I thought that was a little bit ludicrous, given that payment was received in full, and that I could imagine 48 years from now having this paper trail of something that was sold back in 2017. So that's where that came from.
Okay. Let's see. And as far as the completion of this audit and all this documentation, was it done as of November 27th? Is that when?
I believe
stuff
that was the date of our, yes, that was the date of our report, yes, of our opinion. That's
Okay.
correct.
Well, I'm sure we'll have an awful lot more questions that we just received this today, so.
We're happy to answer them at
Love
any
to have
time.
you here to answer questions once we have a chance to look through it, but I don't know if that's going to be possible.
Madam Mayor and Council, if you have questions regarding the CAFR report, Ed and I will take those questions that we have in previous years. So I would direct those at myself, and I will forward anything that's complicated to Ed, and then we can answer any questions you have after going through your audit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any?
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Harris.
We're talking back here, the water fund and the sewer fund, and I know your financial work is done through the fiscal year that ended on June 30th. But just to kind of backup statement is, during last year's budget, we basically have assigned water and utility rates that probably are going to augment us in the next couple of years and stuff, and we're probably going to continue under the left.
Yeah, I
chart-
think that's
left
originally
chart
why
rather
this
than the
graph
right
was
chart.
put together, because as you're setting rates, people are looking at the statements as presented on the left-hand side, and they're thinking, you have all this operating income, why are we still changing the rates? Well, if you look at it on the cash-out basis, you're still not breaking even. So just to help them understand that that's why the rates continue to increase or.
Right, and I think
be
we
adjusted.
understand
Yeah.
the bonding and stuff that we pay
Right.
for and stuff,
Yep.
but I think that we've taken measures here for at least for the next couple of years, that are going to address some of these issues, and hope we don't come back and change another look at it next year, so. But, yeah, as like Mr. Ward said, when I get done looking at this, I'll probably have some comments also, and I really appreciate for what you do. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other? Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you
giving
for your time.
presentation. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just to be clear as well, to the citizens, this document will be available for download on porthuron.org/opengovernment if you really want to bore yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
We need to take a vote. Receive and file.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rapp?
Yes. We'll move on to item 2.
Accepting the bid from Wolverine Freightliner East Side Incorporated in the amount of $131,837 for the purchase of a single-axle truck cab and chassis, complete with a dump box and snowplow for use by the Forestry Department.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Ruiz, is there discussion?
Madam Mayor, just real quickly, this was a budgeted item. It is replacing one of the fleet vehicles, and if you have any spec questions, Lenny is available.
Yeah, I see from your backup
Yeah,
material.
put a proposal, the summary proposal on the back page. so.
Correct. Any questions from council?
Mayor Rep,
Councilmember Harris.
just one general question. It looked like we had a choice on chassis for these vehicles, and it looks like in both we took this, the one design. In what respect did the chassis vary?
The chassis, Mr. Councilman, Madam Mayor, you talk about the difference between these two trucks that are,
Right.
the chassis don't differ as much as the dump bed does, because one is a salt box that will be used to spread salt, and the other is not. The Forestry Department is using theirs primarily to haul wood chips and such. The Streets Department is using theirs for salt in the winter, and the bed is different. It's not a steel bed, it's an aluminum bed, et cetera, et cetera. That's primarily the difference.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yes, Councilmember Lee.
I have one question. I was just curious on the mileage on these vehicles. Is that average that after 50, 60,000 miles, they don't to last?
Well, are we talking about both or just the first?
Well, the first one was, it says here 58,000, and the second one was
Well, the
close to
first one
60.
is truck number 404, and it's used year-round to haul equipment trailers and equipment for the Forestry Department. It's used for snow removal in the winter. It's a 1999 Chevy 8500. It's got 13,000 hours on it and 58,000 miles. Now, the problem with it, it's so old, they don't make parts for this anymore. The repair parts are difficult to find or to make. The engine, which is a non-sleeve diesel engine, cannot be rebuilt because of the nature of the engine, and it's hard to start in the cold. It really has exceeded its expected life. We've gone through Mitten to find this. We found 3 examples. And this vehicle, it's not the miles, because it spends a lot of time idling, running in place. So it's not the miles as much as it's the hours, kind of like me. Sorry.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Is there any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem Ashford.
Yeah, Lenny, this is a simple one. You know, can you explain to me, I'm not kind of savvy to all this, the significance of you got in asterisks, outfitted by Schultz and whatever at the bottom of the,
Well, if you notice, there are two companies which are both Wolverine Freightliner East Line. But one is the Schultz Equipment Company, and the other is Nappi. They're different offices, different locations.
Right.
And they each put in a bid, and one bid was better than the other. But they're both basically under the same parent company.
okay, so is this the adjective, is this outfitted? I thought it was some significance to that.
No, ma'am, we just
Okay.
wanted to point out, if somebody asks why you have the same company bidding twice, it's the 2 different offices of the
Oh,
same
okay.
company.
All right.
That's what that
Thank
is.
you.
Anyone else?
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Warden.
I just have a question, just overall on these. I appreciate this proposal, little summary. I like that you're adding more detail for us, so we don't have to ask you so many questions.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's in need. This vehicle at the very bottom, it says this old truck will be sold at auction for salvage value. And again, I think the next one doesn't have that on there, so we'll get to that. But my question actually is, we have on these, every time we have a motor vehicle fund purchase for this, for this last, since July, or even before then, you started putting the budgeted amount in this, for the year, and it has a budgeted amount of $773,000 for the motor vehicle pool budget for all the different purchases we've already approved over the time so far. I'm just wondering, it seems, are we close to that already from July 1st of this year till now for this budget that's reflected of 773 on when these purchases come before us?
No, the motor pool fund is under budget, and that's why we give you quarterly financial reports. You'll find one in your packet today that outlines the current status of the motor pool fund.
My question, let me clarify, is that on these, as these come before us to have discussion for these purchases, whether it's a police vehicle or a maintenance truck or for whatever department, it usually comes from the motor vehicle pool, and the budgeted amount always says the 773, and I think previous prior meetings, we've had other council members kind of ask if that's the dollar amount for the budget in there. And I'm just wondering why we keep seeing the 773 for the budget amount.
That was budgeted for the capital of vehicle purchases from the DPW for that budget year. The motor pool budget on an annual basis for instance, this year, is around $2.9 million. Encumbered to date, it's about $1.8 million. And again, that would be in your quarterly financial report as a whole.
So the basically proposed budget for motor vehicle pool for new purchases of vehicles, it doesn't matter which department will come before us, this 773 is what has been allocated in that budget for new purchases?
For this purpose, correct, for this purpose.
And do you know where we're at yet from July till now, roughly? On that, for new purchase of
We are
vehicles?
under budget, I know that.
Under budget. We wouldn't be bringing it forward if we weren't.
No, I just see on this one, it says that there's, 1,800 over budget for this particular item of the 131,000 and then the other, but I'm just looking overall. So I thought I'd bring that up because it's, I'd like to see where we're at with this number of this new purchases when these come before us.
We take them one item at a time, so when you look at your capital outlay in your budget, so in the budget that you approved in July, it's detailed what's going to be purchased, it's broken down with the budgeted amount, so we look at each item individually, so how much is this truck versus how much it was budgeted, rather than as a whole, so it's more accountable to each expenditure.
Okay. So these...
So I'd encourage you to go back and look at the budget to see what each item was budgeted for the purchase, and then you'll see that that's why we put the under budget versus what was budgeted.
Okay. So, again, I think I'll just taking what's given to us. So this purchase here, along with the other ones coming up, the next couple, are budgeted for this year. It is proposed to us now, and we are currently under budget of what the proposed amount is for these expenditures for new vehicles.
Precisely.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor? Yes, Councilmember Archibald.
The last several times we've talked about vehicles, we hear over and over that the miles are very low, but the hours are very high, and the trucks sit idling. So not for right now, I just want to put it out there that I would be curious as to, I understand why sometimes it might be smart to have the truck sitting there idling, but I'm wondering if that's best practice and all the time, that all of the trucks are sitting idling long hours way beyond what we're driving them.
Ma'am, the power for these pieces of equipment is from the engine, and they power the hydraulics that run the dump bed or the arms or whatever other power takeoff is available for that vehicle. So the reason the engines run is to power the vehicle and the other ancillary equipment. It's not that it just sits there idling and not being used, seriously.
And that's what, I just want to make it clear that if they are idling, it's because they
Right.
need that power or we're shutting them off.
Correct.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. I think that probably concludes discussion, and we'll take the vote.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, we'll move on to the next item, please.
Accepting the bid from Wolverine Freightliner East Side Incorporated in the amount of $149,193 for a truck cab and chassis complete with a dump box, salt spreader, and snow plow for use by the Streets Division.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Ruiz. Is there questions?
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Warden.
the question I have is, are we keeping this one for use? Because I noticed that I brought it up, there's nothing in this about you're going to sell it or salvage value, or are you going to plan on replacing this to have it, the unit 118? Is this the unit
This is
118?
also going to be, next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Nice.
This is also going to be
That's 404.
taken out of service. This particular vehicle is also 16 years old. It's got 60,000 miles, but that's not the one. Oh, anyway,
I know. so
this is a
that,
Sterling.
But it has it down here. at least
Sterling no
somebody
longer
for it.
makes parts for this. It hauls asphalt during the summer, the sand and gravel, and it hauls salt and it plows in the winter. It's got 60,000 miles, but again, those aren't necessarily idling miles. Whenever you're plowing or salting, you're not going very fast, so you get a lot of hours for every mile that you're driving. So the same sort of problems exist with this that were with all of them. They're just old, they're worn out, and they need to be replaced. And you can see the status of the vehicle. Salt tends to tell them if this particular bed is in very bad shape, and I know the engine is pretty much worn out at this point. It's not salvageable.
Any other questions?
Mayor,
Councilmember Harris.
just one question. We've evolving a lot, and we've moved a lot of vehicles in the last 3 or 4 years with new vehicles. With these 2 vehicles gone, what's our oldest vehicle going to be out there for plowing?
I couldn't tell you which is the oldest vehicle. I'd have to get back with you.
Okay. It'd be nice, I mean, we should be close to.
Yeah.
Well, we have a fleet that we're constantly trying to generate, but we have a large number of vehicles that support the city, so, you know, we are always replacing the oldest, most worn-out ones. That doesn't mean that suddenly our ages jump to an average of 5 years. They're still pretty old. You know, that's why we maintain them. And when we can't, we have to replace them.
I think it's also to mention that this one particularly, you use it additionally for other things too. Other departments can use it, I see.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, that's
true.
good. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Ruiz.
I hate to trouble you with this, but I'm going to, and that is, could we get an update when you find, if there's no rush, obviously, in times where we get an overview just for us as a council to see what our fleet numbers, it's a good time for us to do that and see age and those kinds of things. And again, obviously, that's gathering of information, and
Yes, sir, I can do that.
that'd be great for us to have that, and
be
just
nice.
kind of as a reference point.
If you don't mind having your eyes roll back in your head, I can provide as much detail as you'd like. Yes, sir, I can do that.
I'm a pro at that after
Yes, sir.
Well, I would like to amend that, if you don't mind. While you're going to tell us what we look like, give us some future projections also. If you can, of what we need.
Yes, ma'am. In fact, I believe you can look at the capital improvements plan, and we've spelled out in there many of our proposed purchases. We do look at these years in advance. This has been a planned replacement for several
Right.
several cycles now.
I know I do that, but the reason I'm asking you to do that, even though we have it there, we need to see some alignment, some more clarity on it. So I would like it to be amended with his. Thank you very much.
Mayor Rep, if I could.
Yes.
Another issue, that kind of backstepping a little bit, but if you come to us and you're presenting something and it's over budget, You're going to have that noted in our report, are you not?
Yes, sir.
Thank
Just
you.
like we have in here. The only way we could account for that is if we have money from somewhere else that we could use. We're under budget in some areas.
That would be in our report and our notes and such.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 4, please.
Accepting the bid from Blue Water Chrysler in the amount of $49,118 for two 2018 Dodge vehicles for use by the police department.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Second?
Councilmember Lamb, is there discussion?
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Warden.
Just a question, are these going to be replaced in any vehicles, or are we just adding to the fleet with these two?
They are on a rotation schedule, so we will push down the oldest vehicles further down the fleet, and then 2 vehicles will exit the fleet towards the end.
And I noticed in here, in your summary, which I appreciate, it basically states about the police department and the detective bureau now are carrying more tools and equipment and, you know, kind of I guess transitioning over to these, I guess more like these Durango or more utility. It looks
Councilman
like-
Warden, as a rule, we prefer not to name the type of vehicle our undercover officers use.
Oh, okay. Well, just reading it right here, sorry. So I appreciate the summary that you gave for this.
Is there any other questions or discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 5.
Approving the bid from Seven Brothers Painting Incorporated in the amount of $308,600 for the painting of the North Service Center ground storage tank and miscellaneous repairs.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Second?
Councilmember Lamb. Discussion.
Madam Mayor, just a quick recap in case you have any more additional questions. Lonnie's up there as well. But this is not only painting the tank, but this is also sandblasting. So it's a lot more money because every couple times we paint, we actually have to go back and sandblast it. And this is the cycle where it needs to be sandblasted as well, which accounts for about double the cost of what it would cost to typically paint.
Oh, okay.
Any questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem Ashford.
Oh, I know they didn't bid or anything, but I know the last time, what is it, Edward J. Painting? Is this the same type of stuff he did before, or no?
That was a different
That was a
tank.
different type, okay.
Right.
All right.
Well, they did the work on the inside of the plant.
Okay.
This is a different
It's higher
type of-
magnitude,
right.
isn't it? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Lenny.
Anyone else?
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Warden.
I want to commend you on, again, this had, looks like 6 bids that came back. Again, it looks like a pretty big dollar amount, but of course, for just a question on how long, when we do something like this, how often do we have to do this tank again, potentially?
Well, this particular tank, which is the south tank, was, the exterior was last painted in 2008. But in this particular iteration, we're also painting the interior. As Mr. Fried has mentioned, we're also going to be abrasive blasting the interior, which needs to be done. And that was last done in 1997. So that's about on a 20-year cycle.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 6.
Accepting the quote from Michigan Specialties Coating Incorporated in the amount of $11,692 for laboratory epoxy floor installation at the wastewater treatment plant.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Ruiz, is there discussion?
Madam Mayor, at the last council meeting, you approved the removal of asbestos tile from the lab. This is to go over the concrete. They're going with the epoxy because it's a one-time fix, and we'll have to keep going back.
Any questions?
Mayor, if I could, just, was that
Councilmember Ruiz.
yes, the removal of that and then going to this epoxy, was that a discovery of ours? Was that?
We know, we knew, we have known for a while that the tiles that are contained in that floor were ACM, asbestos-containing materials, and they eventually needed to be replaced. And it was budgeted, this is the year it came up. We had to do it in 2 phases. We had to know what the cost was for removing the tiles, and once we had that contract in place, then we will go forward with the replacement or painting of that floor. Since it's a laboratory, it has to be a special epoxy, and, you know, this flooring is being put in, and we're closing the lab for a weekend. Once the ACM material has been removed, we get a report from the IH, the industrial hygienist, that says it's been properly removed. Then we can go back in and paint the floor.
Okay, so it's our inspection, it's not an outside agency that said?
That's correct.
Thank you.
But, Mayor, but it's a safety,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Any other questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 7.
Accepting the quote from Metropolitan Air Compressors Company Incorporated in the amount of $39,950 for the purchase of 2 air compressors for plant-wide air needs, including a 1-year preventative maintenance agreement at the wastewater treatment plant.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Second?
Councilmember Lamb, is there discussion?
Yeah,
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford.
thanks, Mayor. Lindy, what are we doing with the old ones? They're no good, are they, or what's that?
We're taking them out and scrapping them,
Scrap
disposing them, selling them for what we, it's a very, the system is not very reliable. In fact, it's constantly being repaired. That's why we have these. We have towables that are on standby, a towable out in the yard at a standby to run these plants in the case when they go down, which happens too frequently. And once these systems are in, we can take that towable back to the warehouse for
Okay,
utilities.
and what's their lifetime longevity? I mean, how long have we had them?
Well, this one was original with the buildings when they went in, and
Oh.
so,
Yeah,
Yes.
it's about time. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Any other questions?
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Warden.
Lenny, I just want to, again, thank you for putting kind of like the summary together of some of the different companies and bids, and but also the maintenance potential, additional preventive maintenance or costs that we have to do or potentially have to do going forward. And this
the purpose
choice,
of that memo was to demonstrate why I'm recommending approval of
Yep.
not the low bidder
Yep.
by about $300 because of the nature of their PM contract requirements.
yep. And so with this one, it looks like it's a year-to-year that we get to choose. And it does include up to 4 visits per year.
Yes, sir.
And I know somewhere in here, are we able to, with our staff, do some servicing on it if needed?
That's the intent, sir. After the first year, after we've learned the procedures and after we've seen 4, we can, should we so choose, resume the PM of these, and we will not lose our warranty with this particular company.
Thank you very much.
Any other discussion, questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 8.
Accepting the bid from Clean Cut Maintenance LLC in the amount of $300 per snow plowing, $300 per salting, and $1,000 for snow removal services as needed for sidewalks and parking lanes within the Huron Avenue Streetscape District.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Ruiz. Discussion.
Madam Mayor, we took over this contract from Main Street Program after Main Street dissolved, and we began taking over the streetscape maintenance. We inherited a contract, we kept that contract going. Ben worked very hard to bid this out this year. In fact, I think you bid it out twice, and we could only get one bidder each time. The same company that's been doing a good job for us. But it's a difficult contract, and to be quite frank, the bidders aren't out there. So we appreciate Clean Cut Maintenance, who's been doing a great job for us, to continue doing the work for us and giving us a pretty competitive bid.
Is it the same as last time, or is it?
No, it's up about $1,000. Come on up.
Yeah.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Rep. It went up $100 per time. We added the south side of Quay Street, so it'll be the southeast, southwest corner of Quay Street. You have the Heritage Park, and then I believe the other side is a hair salon. Last year, we had complaints that was not getting done properly, and when we found out from the previous contracts from Main Street, that was not included. So it went up $100 per time for that.
About how many pushes a season do we get? 10 to 20?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And like the snow removal, the $1,000 per, I mean, we haven't done that in 2 years because the snowfall hasn't been great, so that's not even actually been done. So, but it's there in case we need it.
And this is all paid for out of the streetscape funds, correct?
Yes.
So the property owners pay for it. Okay. Any other questions from council? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
We will take the vote.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Warden.
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald.
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 9.
Receive and file the quarterly financial report for the 3-month period ending September 30th, 2017.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Second?
Councilmember Lamb.
Madam Mayor, you have your financial report. If you've noticed, year over year, if you were to take this back and compare your quarterly financial report from last year this time, we're in a much better position this year, going into the winter than we were last year, and so things are looking good.
Thank you. Is there questions from council?
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Warden.
Yeah, a couple questions. This is for the first quarter, it looks like ended September 30th. Appreciate the kind of little overview. The new property tax administration fee of revenues was $254,000. Is that, when it says new, is that something that we haven't had before, or how long is that?
So that is the property tax administration fee that we implemented July 1st of this budget. I believe we're one of the only municipalities in St. Clair County that didn't facilitate that. That is to recoup our costs. So as the City of Port Huron and the tax collecting agency, we collect and administer the taxes for all the different jurisdictions. So for transit, for the schools, for the county, for all the different millages you have from all the different county agencies, we administer that. And that 1% is to recoup our administration costs for doing so.
So it's just charged right on the bill?
Correct.
The property tax bill?
Correct.
Okay. And is this, or again, is this just once a year?
Correct.
Or the two bills? Okay, so we're looking at that $254,000 as additional revenue. Really, that's where we're going to be at for the additional revenue for that?
Correct.
For the fiscal year?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I just was flipping through here. I just had a question on on page 30, well, packet, let's say H9A or packet 31, the bond indebtedness and other long-term obligations. As far as the total, is it the enterprise funds, is that where our sewer, that CSO debt still is, the bonds are?
So
Or what is it?
Our CSO debt for both water and sewer, we have debt, about $90 million of outstanding debt on that, and it's split up between water and sewer.
Okay, that's the reflection there. I noticed in the report, you gave for this, the 3 months ending September 30th numbers, investment report, and then also gave for the 12 months ended June 30th. Is that, and it does say in the quarter report, is that for us to calculate the difference from quarter to quarter, or is that a typo at the top there?
Which page are you on?
H9A, there's two H9As. or 3H9As. It's on page 36, 37, 38, and 39 of
Gotcha.
our packet. I just noticed on page 36 and 37, I was looking at the financial, the cash and the money markets and so forth, where we're at. And then 2 pages later, on page 38, I noticed that at the top of the page, it said for the 12 months ended June 30th, so.
Mayor and council, the reason you receive 2 investment reports at this time of the year is we don't prepare a quarterly report for June 30th because of the audit. So you get the audit, and then you get that quarterly report, then you also get the September 30th quarterly report.
Okay. So I did have just a quick question on the net effects, various reconciling items. The difference there of, it's a negative $779,000, and it has our cash at 4.7, as it looks like 4.7 million. And then, again, it shows a negative for the end of September there of negative 542,000 for that same item, but our total demand deposits now are up, what, 300,000 or 280,000 for the quarter?
Well, what's in that number is when you balance your checkbook at home, you have some outstanding deposits and some outstanding checks. Ours are much larger because, and depending on when, let's say the last day of the month is on a Friday when we do a check run, almost all of those checks are going to be outstanding, or a payroll. We're going to have a lot of checks outstanding. If the last day happens to be on a Thursday, then that number is going to be a lot smaller. If it happens to be a time when tax bills are going out or something like that, and we get heavy receipts on the last day of the month, or water or sewer bills are due, that number is going to be higher. So that number sort of fluctuates.
Okay, I appreciate that. I was hoping that was the answer. And then the last thing is just the cash on deposits with Wells Fargo for the cemetery perpetual fund has $107,000, and of course, that as of September 30th, it's down to $370. Do we move that, or is that something that is?
Yeah, we put that into sometimes we have bonds that come due, and the money comes in, and we're not able to, a lot of times they'll come due on the last day of the month. We'll get the money in, and then we'll move it to a cash account. We've been moving more things, kind of sitting a little bit in cash right now because their feeling and a lot of other people's feelings is the market's a little bit oversold right now, so it's probably not a real good time to, although I've been saying that for a couple of months now, but, we want to be protected in case there's a correction. Some people say it could correct as much as 10%, so.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions before you run away?
Mayor Rep, just one more question on our investment. I know I've always been a complaint that Chase Bank was one of the lower performers and stuff, and it looks like Eastern Michigan Bank is dropping down to their performance and stuff. And is that a good sign from that bank?
Well, we are looking right now at the last time that we did a deposit, a bank authorization with the council has been several years. And at that time, Chase was Bank One, and Chemical was either Talmer or whoever they were before that. And so probably sometime in January, we're going to be bringing a new authorization. We have a lot of new banks also in town, and some of them are offering very good rates. And of course, we would do our due diligence. AM Best does a rating on banks and credit unions. We would make sure they're well rated with them before we put any money there. But that's something we've been talking with the manager about, and we'll probably bring something either in late January or February to get some authorization to be able to take advantage of some of the banks in the city that are offering better rates. So.
I know I really appreciate the movement away from Chase Bank and stuff, but it just kind of got me that we had another bank going in that similar direction, so.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know that they've moved down, it's just that they haven't moved up. So,
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We will take the vote to receive and file the quarterly report.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Warden.
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald.
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We'll move on to resolutions. Number 1, please.
Authorizing 10 payments.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Archibald, is there any questions?
Mayor Rapp,
Councilmember Harris?
can we, I don't know, maybe James is more versed in this. I'm looking at last month's, and we had a change order in for a payment for Inman Excavating, and it looks like in our November 13th meeting that we made a payment to Inman Excavating of $20,629.99. And now it appears that there's a request on here for tonight for, to me, it looks like it's an additional $20,831.08. And I just wonder if this, are these separate? And is that our total? Are we getting $40,000 or?
I believe they are separate, but I can check and.
Would you please?
Yeah. Yep.
I know we had a little issue
Yep.
some time ago, but
Yep.
it kind of jumped out at me that,
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Vote.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Warden.
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald.
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Councilmember Harris.
yes,
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 2.
Approving the contract with the Michigan Department of Transportation for reconstruction of the intersection of I-94 and 10th Avenue and I-94 and Scott Avenue.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Councilmember Archibald, Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there discussion?
I like the split. That wasn't discussion, it's just a comment. Only 8,000,
Yes,
our share.
that's
Yeah.
pretty good. Yes.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, if I could as well, this is really going to enhance the safety of that intersection. Right now, there's unnecessary entry. It's like 6 different pieces of road coming into one intersection. This is after that study that they completed last year, and so this should improve safety and also expedience in traveling that road.
It's good.
Agree.
Mayor,
Councilmember Ward?
are they doing anything different for the layout or just going to reconstruct it and kind of update it?
The entire layout is going to be Scott Ave, where Scott comes out on Huron, will actually be taken out, so Scott will no longer approach Huron. It'll only be, instead of a 6-way intersection, it'll be a 4-way intersection, which will make it much safer. The traffic counts on Scott are almost nothing coming out there, so it's another light synchronization for no reason.
I also just want to comment again on, this is, even though it's $341,000, the city of Port Huron's portion, it looks like it's $8,000, $8,200. Do we have any, there's nothing additional that we're going to be having to add to that?
No.
I like that mix too, to Mayor Pro Tem Ashford. I second that one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Warden.
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald.
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Councilmember Harris.
yes.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz.
No.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Resolution number 3.
It's a shortcut.
I know.
I'm sorry, man, it was out of order. He said no. He told me I cut through that. That's cute.
Resolution number 3.
Authorizing the purchase of 3025 John L. Portis Drive vacant lot for $13,000.
Do you want to do 4 too, because they're both purchases on the same street, so.
And then authorizing the purchase of 2 vacant lots at 3100 John L. Portis Drive for $13,000.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Second,
Councilmember Harris?
Madam Mayor, you have here, this again, part of our strategic plan to assemble property for a new manufacturing facility out there. This price point is on par with the square foot price that we have paid previously for adjoining parcels. I also want to thank Carissa Wilkins from Kramer Realty. The time and energy she has put into this, she did not make any money on this type of low sale point. She had to chase down the owner. She had to work through a lot of deed issues and hours and hours and hours, which she will never be compensated for. So thank you for essentially volunteering your time to help assemble these properties.
questions?
Yes, Mayor Rep. From this map, and when you look at all this parcel, is it your plan, are we as a city to acquire all of this?
So, yes and no. We have on the property to the north in the blue shade here, we actually have a reverse clause in there that if they don't develop it, we can reverse it back to the city. And so we just want one parcel. I'm not worried about the rest of it right now if an opportunity comes, but I would like one buildable site that we can site between a 300 and 500,000 square foot plant should the opportunity present itself. Right now, we have companies inside our industrial park who are looking at additional facilities, and I want to make sure that we have the land with the utility capability to sustain that growth, and that's really what this is about. So we're getting a pretty good chunk there. With the reverse clause north of Dove Street and the Chassex property, we have a good assembly of property there now. I'm feeling good, feeling good about it.
All right, well, I wasn't feeling good because I go to church services over here in this little corner.
Yep.
And I just want to know, will you plan to do all that? Or do you have to do some extra shouting on Sunday?
Nope.
Oh, okay, so that's but all the other things are open seasons up there near the front. She's shaking her head, I see it. It's okay. No, you just like to know you're sitting there and people ask me questions, and I just like to know, and we're not aggressively approaching anyone out here. Is that still correct?
What we're essentially doing is if people reach out to us.
Wait, okay, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to speak to this. Yeah, I'm going to speak to this.
Okay, he's going to speak to, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted, like, your lips were moving, and I was saying, well, okay. I didn't want you to be cutting him off.
Yeah, no, David actually, Chris and I worked on this deal. David was not a part of it.
Oh, okay.
So with what we're doing at these properties, essentially, we have put out the information to the neighborhood that, hey, we're looking at doing this as part of our plan. Sometimes we have opportunities where people are just moving, or there's a loved one that passes away and they no longer need the home. When those opportunities arise, that's how we've been finding most of these.
Okay, yeah, because the one person on here did complain that someone came to her, and she was offended by that. One of the ones.
Yeah,
So I just want you to know, you need to
Yep.
be careful, because she's, it's like, till I die, I'll be in here. So, and she's right up in there.
Yep, we have noted that. When we approached every property owner, we had some who would have been offended if we didn't approach them. And so we just gave the same blanket information to every property owner, said, hey, this is part of our strategic plan. If you're interested, give us a call. I am familiar with her, and she doesn't need to sell us. We're not going to take it. She can stay there as long as she wants.
Well, I know she can, but I'm just wanted to make it known publicly, So thank you so much.
Anything else?
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Warden.
Just a quick question on, again, I'm going to mimic some of that, just to be careful of these people that are, these are their homes, these are this is where they live, and previous council meetings brought up that it is not going to chase them down or trying to, influence them to get out. It's when and if they want to. I just had a question on these, are we doing these together? So, these two. When I see 13,000 vacant lots, 13,000, it just, again, this is the purchase going after, but so many times we have over the years, or over the year that coming in that we sell off a vacant lot after it's demoed or that it's just available, not on the tax rolls, and we're selling them for $1,500 or $1,200. I'm just wanting to know, why is there such a drastic difference in price of us paying out so much more for vacant property than when we give it away to somebody that's an adjoining neighbor?
So, excellent question. So when you have a landlocked piece of property that can only be built a house in the middle of a neighborhood, it does not have the same value as sprawling property next to an industrial park with industrial utility capability. So they're not apples and apples, or apples and oranges. If this property was landlocked in a neighborhood that I couldn't build an industrial facility on, it would not be worth $13,000. But because of its location, that is what gives it value. And to be quite frank, if we had to build utility capability anywhere else in town to make properties suitable for industrial, it would cost us millions of dollars. So they got lucky with geography.
Any other questions? We'll take the vote. This is on 3 and 4 both.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
No.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
No.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 5.
Authorizing the submission of a grant application to the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Legacy Funds in the amount of $25,000 to assist with the purchase and installation of a bike pump track and related amenities within Optimist Park.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Ruiz. Is there discussion? We will take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 6, please.
Adopting a revised schedule of fees effective January 1st, 2018 for various sections of the Code of Ordinance and other user-specific fees.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Support?
Councilmember Lamb, is there discussion?
Yeah, what precipitated this? Is just upbeat overall, or what?
Yeah, this is on an annual basis. We revisit our actual cost under state statute, which allows us to recoup our costs for inspections on certain activities, and so that's what accounted for this. We do it on an annual basis.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Warden.
I just have a few questions. I noticed some of these, you have, I think it's an addition of a permit extension, additional 6-month. It looks like in a few of these categories. What was happening before where they would pay for their permit and then it wouldn't be done within the time frame? What was is that what's causing this to?
Correct. We have to go through, check the status of the job, spend some essentially staff hours, make sure the status of the job is still safe, and then we give them an extension.
That was the way it was before?
Correct.
And now at least they're just, it's $50 and they get an extension?
Correct.
So we're not having to inspect it?
To recoup our staff time.
Okay. The other question I have is on this, again, I think it's the connection of a water sewer or water line permit. That's page 91, service charge for water charges here. Looks like, this adding this missing or damaged cable for $25, adding missing or damaged register for $90, where before you just had meter replacement or missing or damaged endpoint with $185 and $80. What caused those two additional, items to be on there? What was happening out there that's causing this?
So our system has been upgraded, so now we use a wireless system, which is a much more complex unit than just a simple pipe to meter, and this is to update our schedule of fees to account for those expenses as well.
I'm just saying, particular on this is going to be charged to the homeowner, I would imagine.
Correct.
And is it generated from them, the actual homeowner or the property owner saying, hey, we're having a problem? Or is this generated from the city that says, hey, we're not getting an accurate read? They come out and then they charge additional?
This is generated by homeowner damage. If it's a city issue and it's our responsibility, we take care of it. But there's damage that was, something happened to a house, a construction or remodel, and it was damaged, that's the charge.
Where they are asking for it to be repaired? Okay. And then right underneath that, the service charge, for, it looks like, a deposit for a service connection, and it looks like there's, it was $800 before, which seems to me pretty significant amount, but it looks like you're proposing $1,500, like almost doubling it?
Well, that's the deposit. The actual cost to dig a new water connection to a brand-new home is significantly more than that. And so we want to make sure that we had a significant deposit on hand, because we have to buy all the materials, which is expensive. We have to dig the hole and put all the man hours in. So we expel significantly more than $1,500 to actually provide this service.
And this work's done by the city, because it's not done by the contractor or the individual property owner?
It's done by the contractor to Maine, and then the city makes the connection.
Again, just having it double just seems like a pretty high.
It's a significant cost from the city of Port Huron to send our staff out there to dig to the main.
This is actual cost, though, is it not? I mean, when it says a deposit, It says also after
Correct.
installation, the deposit will be deducted from the actual time and material costs. So if it was less,
Correct.
you get money back. If it was more,
Correct.
you pay more.
Correct.
Strictly a deposit.
So this is for new service.
Yes. Isn't it?
Somebody has existing service, some issues, they're not going to get hit with, hey, they had to come up with
No.
$1,500?
No, this is for new construction. Or if they're running a new service line for some reason.
Okay. So I just think it might be.
Madam Mayor, I will point out as well,
Yeah.
we put in there a garage sale permit as well. We have had complaints of people in town, very few, who have been running essentially flea markets in their yard. And so we have, and our ordinance doesn't allow it, so we had allowed for a garage sale permit. That is at no charge. We will put essentially an application on the website for download. You can come in and fill it out. Just let us know you're having a garage sale. That'll be at no cost. That was just something we felt that people shouldn't have to pay to have a garage sale.
But it is limited to 6 in a calendar year.
Correct. And that's really why we're doing this. We have no way of tracking it.
Yeah. Okay.
I just, again, I just want to stay, and I think we should look at this. I mean, that's from $800 to $1,500 for somebody to have to put on deposit, not counting other cost of installation. I think that might be a little too high, is my suggestion.
Would it be fair to the other taxpayers to have to eat that cost if it's not recouped? Because which has had happened. When we have to dig down to a main, that main can be anywhere from 10 to 15 to 16 feet deep. That requires backhoes, trucks, significant man hours. When you're building a new house, I don't think this has ever been an issue. This is not for someone who has existing service. This isn't for someone who's repairing their water main. This is for someone who's digging down to connect to our main. It is significant staff and significant cost, and it is fair to the enterprise that the rest of the users don't have to pay for that cost.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Harris, I believe you
Yeah,
had
I
a
guess
question?
my only question was, I just looked a couple blocks down the street on Wells Street. We've got a house there that's been in building process for probably 18 months. And I guess my question is, we're giving him a 6 months extension for, $60 or something like that, but are we going to require them to get the plumbing one, the mechanical one, and electrical?
Yep.
No, okay, good, thank you. I mean, we have, somehow or another, we have to get these jobs done, and I know the neighborhood watch group, that's why the comments at their discussions and stuff, and the problem with that house has been in construction for a year and a half, and it just seems to be 3 or 4 bricks at a time, and
Pay as you go.
it'd be nice if we could speed them up rather than penalize them.
Correct, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how we can do that, but thank you.
Any other questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Warden.
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald.
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Ordinances, please.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 52 zoning, Article 7, signs of the Port Huron Code of Ordinance to allow freedom of speech signs with size regulations, to redefine political signs, and decrease the size allowed for special event size.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Second?
Councilmember Lamb, is there discussion?
Mayor Rep, can we have some explanation of how this came about and how long it's been in process and why you're looking to have this done?
I think Todd is going to answer that for us.
Yeah, essentially, the part of the change that came from my office was just to update our ordinance to comply with some recent case law that came down over the last 5 to 10 years. Our ordinance was a bit outdated. We allowed certain types of signs, certain types of political signs, but we didn't allow signs where somebody had other forms of protected speech. And so we added that section to this ordinance to allow those, but also to prevent, those from basically dominating somebody's yard and house. So, we placed the same type of limitations as other signs or something of a similar nature.
I just have a couple questions here, and I want to share this with council, my thoughts, and hopefully for consideration. This first exemption for the election signs, read through the striked or red part, and it looks like you had, you're switching, it was 16 square feet in areas for rated R, R1. That was the restriction of the total size of a sign. And then it had 32 square feet were allowed in A1, A2, and other non-residential district areas. And it looks like you're switching and moving the A1 and A2 and this R and R1 now to reduce it all to 16 square feet as far as the size. Am I correct?
That's the edit.
And why are we reducing those down to 16 square feet? What's that number for?
That was not one that was generated from my office, but I assume it was, when I read this, I assumed it was tied to residential areas. So the 16 would be in residential areas, which are R, R1, A1, and A2, and the 32 would be in non-residential areas.
So the A1 and A2 and prior were 32 square feet available, and now we're reducing it down. I don't understand
Yes.
the logic behind why we're reducing that. Just a question.
Mostly,
I don't know why, if we
well,
don't have a
David
problem.
speak to it, but mostly we just didn't want billboards in our neighborhoods.
32 square feet is not a very big sign. You know,
The position was to make that.
4 feet by 8 feet is not a very big sign, and you're switching it down to
Well,
16.
within a residential area, we were looking at making that consistent with the other residential zonings as well. And we did the same with the commercial districts, the CBD, the C1, M1, and M2, to make that more consistent with the 32 feet. Whereas before, you had a kind of a mix of size that would not only go into a commercial area, but also into a residential. We decided to make a clear delineation between commercial spaces and residential spaces.
Okay. I mean, are we speaking just to this first election, or can I question the other parts that I have question on? The special event signs, again, was 16, prior it was a 16 square foot sign. That's what you just said was okay for the election signs here, and it shall not exceed, what are we down to here? Now you shrunk it down to 12 square feet. I just wondering, why are we nitpicking on special event? You know, we're making it like a little, I just don't understand why we're reducing that from, it's 16, it was fine enough for the election we just talked about, the previous you're changing it to, but now you're squeezing this down. I don't understand the logic behind that. It's such a small sign, 16 square feet is very minimal.
Well, it'd be 4 by 4.
Well, now you have it reduced down, so not exceed to 12 square feet. I don't know why I think we should keep it at 16, keep it all the same. I don't know what you guys think, just some thoughts.
We're going from a 4 by 4 down to a 3 by 4.
I don't know why we're doing it, though. I mean, you're saying it, but I don't know the need. Why would we need to do that? Pretty soon, we're going to shrink it down even more. I don't know why. It's a pretty small, it's not intrusive. I don't know that we've had a bunch of problems. And the last thing here, of course, is this freedom of speech signs that you're adding. I definitely think we need to this is the first reading, but it needs to be changed. This shall not exceed 12 square feet, so you're going to shrink it down into this little tiny little thing. Freedom of speech for people. You know, you're dealing with, you know, did this come about because of a particular issue that we're running into, we're trying to address out there? Is this, what is the reason why we're having it down to 12 square feet, and that it can't be on the property any longer than 30 days when it's on somebody's own property?
Yeah, this has become a bit of a recurring issue where you have, we have individuals who are now putting up signs that are dominating their entire yard, and you're getting complaints from neighbors, you're getting blight issues. And if you want an ordinance that's enforceable, you have to have it in writing and have some type of limitation on it. So if you want to allow, individuals to put up whatever signs they want in their yard in a residential area, then you can allow that. But if you want to have some type of reasonable restriction to keep your neighborhood so they don't become yards full of signs, then you have the right to do that. So it's really city council's choice. This draft obviously is an attempt to minimize the proliferation of signs that people put in yards.
I'm going to ask you a question on this right here. Number one, it says that it can't be there for any longer than 30 days. And then once a sign has been put on the property, it must remain free of any such signage for a duration of 2 months. So somebody puts up a freedom of speech sign in their yard. We're going to have some enforcement people out there now, after 30 days, now involving themselves with somebody who might, and they're not allowed to put anything up for 2 months after. I think this has a lot of flaws, and let me just share a couple. Number one, there's people that are, I'm afraid that Port Huron High School, Go Big Reds, that is a sign, it's a freedom of speech, and if somebody sticks it in their front yard and they have Go Big Reds, and their kids are in fall sports, their kids are in winter sports, it doesn't matter, but you put that sign up, 30 days later, it's got to come down or you're going to have a problem, and you can't put anything up in your yard for another 2 months. We have people that like the Lions or the Red Wings, and again, there's all kinds of freedom of speech, and I think that this is really definitely impeding on it, and I think this is completely unnecessary to have such tight, try to have some government, influence on such restriction on this thing. I think it's going to be more negative than a positive, so I just don't know if it was, hopefully you can take that into consideration. And I definitely don't think there should be a restriction. If you're going to shrink the size, create an ordinance that has it on there. If they're law-abiding citizens and they own the property and it's there, and whatever size that you decide to have it, I think we need to make sure we're if you're addressing certain ones, but you have to know how it affects everybody else, because everybody else, it's a freedom of speech sign. And anything, the way it's written here, I don't know how, if you can tell me, if I put up a Go Big Reds, or if I put up a Go Huskies, or if I say Go U of M, or Go Lions, and I have a sign in my front yard for over 30 days, what happens to me? How is this going to react?
Yeah, so basically, as I said, this is the issue, is do you want to have any limitations on signs in residential neighborhoods?
Okay,
And if you want to have some limitations, you have to come up with some limitations. This is something the staff drafted. It's consistent with the other limitations on other signs that we have in residential areas where the special event signs, they can only be up for a limited period of time. Your election signs can only be up for a certain period of time and then have to be taken down. The question is, do we want to have any limitations on proliferation of signs in residential neighborhoods? And if you want to have some type of limitation from a legal standpoint, you have to have that in your ordinance.
I think the only thing I can suggest or comment is, if you're going to do it, put a size on it, and some people may have more than one sign. I don't know yet, you're going to have to come up with something, but that limitation is going to be a major, I think we need to take that limitation out, because it affects way too broad of things that we're going to run into in the city, that we don't need that negativity going on, and the resources of our city, Blight and whoever else is enforcement, they're going to be at driving around everywhere, and the neighbors are going to, once one gets a problem, they're going to point the finger at the other. I just don't know if it's a problem. That's my 2 cents, and I'm very concerned about the way this is written. I think we need to change it.
And just if I might say, under your current ordinance, you don't have any ordinance that allows signs of that nature in the yard.
Which means that they're, right now, freedom of speech, they're fine, and they've pointed that out, that they're having it there.
They're banned under your current ordinance. So
Well, we're not enforcing people that have a Go Blue sign out front or Go Lions for 3 months.
I doubt it.
Madam Mayor, if I
Right.
could, this ordinance draft has come out of numerous meetings with our neighborhood watch groups, our neighborhood associations. This ordinance has been driven out of the dozens and dozens of complaints our office has fielded We don't enforce our current ordinance because it speaks to content. It's unenforceable. And so we have people who will have an issue with the blight department and make a billboard in their front yard. And it's been up there for years. We have some people who are mentally unstable who have left one neighborhood in shambles, and we have received complaints after complaints, and there's nothing we can do. We are not targeting the Go Husky people. We are not targeting the big red people. But we cannot regulate based on content. We must regulate based on size. And so unfortunately, we can't say you get to have that, and then you can have your profane sign that you put in your front yard. I would encourage you to reach out to the neighborhoods, to speak to the people who actually live in these neighborhoods, and this is an issue that is at the forefront, and this is being driven again by the community comments we receive from going into those neighborhoods, talking with the people who live there, the complaints we've gotten in City Hall, which has been numerous and many. I remember Chief Reeves and I going out to numerous sites to see people building billboards in their front yard, dozens of signs. So this is something that, again, our residents have asked for. I believe it's reasonable and necessary.
And if I might just add to that, one of the issues that prompted this was a neighbor complaint where you had a neighbor who took care of her lawn, had a very nice, beautiful house, nice flower garden out in front, and across from her house was a vacant building that had a row of never-ending permanent signs placed up. And so it's a legitimate issue of, what do you want in your neighborhoods? Do you want to allow people to have unrestricted number of signs in a residential neighborhood where you have somebody who, wants their neighborhood to be more aesthetically pleasing? That's really the issue.
Councilmember Harris, I believe you have a
All right.
question.
I don't know if this passes the purview in the Supreme Court in Reed versus the town of Gilbert, Arizona or not, but, the more I look at it and stuff, and I went and did some more case research and stuff, and, I mean, I know where we're coming from. I've seen it in our neighborhoods, I've seen it when I get on Union Street, and I see the issues in there, but I'm not sure if we're there yet. I mean, I looked at some of your proposal here and stuff, and we got this freedom of speech signs, and we're looking at is 12 square feet in size. But this doesn't prohibit from a guy putting 80 of them up in his yard. I mean,
I think it's one, right? I think
it doesn't say one in here. There's no, I mean, you look at these drafts and stuff, and you have to have parameters that will stand the court test, because like you say, when you look at this is a 2015 Supreme Court decision, and if you looked at it, my understanding was a unanimous decision, and there was different person's view, and like I say, the content issue was one of the key things, but when you look at this and some of the other issues down, and it's been tested in many Supreme Court cases, and I know we're trying to get away so we don't select it on content and stuff, but if we're going to have an ordinance, we got to have it where you can't, like say, when I looked at this, the first thing I thought, well, it's 12 square feet, but what if I want to put 50 in my yard? Nothing in here prevents.
It does in the language where it states that the area, such signs shall not exceed 24 square feet in area. So you can have multiple signs. You can have maybe 24 one by one.
Yeah.
But your aggregate cannot exceed 24 square feet.
That was the limitation that was placed in.
Or 12 in the matter of the R and R1.
Exactly.
So you'd have to fit all your signs in that particular area if that was your desire. What does it mean for the, as brought up about signs that are just supporting your local high schools or stuff like that? I mean, I realize you're not going to go out looking for those, but how does that, how do you escape it if the person next door says, well, I have mine and you have yours, but yours, what makes the judgment call as to what's?
Well, any sign would be allowed irrespective of content with, obviously, except speech that would be, beyond a First Amendment right.
Except for, it's only for 30 days.
Profane, defamatory speech, that type of thing, things that aren't protected by the First Amendment. So basically, there would be no distinction. If somebody wants to have a sign in their yard that advocates for one position Go Big Reds. I think, as Councilmember Warden indicated, we don't distinguish between the type of speech that's on the
It would be
sign.
under the same limitation, 30 days.
Yes,
Can't put
everyone,
it back in 2 months.
everybody's subject to the same limitation, irrespective of the content of the speech. That's the point to it.
Yeah, I understand. I just,
That's-
I
that's-
understand
that's
that
what
being
makes
a
it
little bit of
legal.
a sticky wicket, but,
Yep.
yeah. And what, if you put these signs in your yard, what is the penalty? Is it a civil infraction?
It would be a zoning violation of $100.
Do other communities have the freedom of this particular thing?
Yeah,
That's the only
this-
part that bothers me a little bit on
Yeah,
the freedom of
this
speech.
was pulled by our staff from other municipalities, yes.
So it was benchmarked.
It-
With
It's,
others.
it's been used by others. You know, if you look at some of the decisions, there's a decision, a Sixth Circuit decision that is addressing an ordinance which is very much like our current ordinance. And that's, you know, what prompted the change, that if you want to have some type of limitation on sign, you're going to have to modify your ordinance to allow all types of free speech. And if you want to put some limitation, you can, as long as you're consistent. So that's the point to it.
Okay, so what you have put together
You-
has some other, some legal ramifications on that base this, correct?
Correct. That
That's
was-
built on it, so this isn't opinionated, what you feel it ought to should.
Correct. What we're doing is we allow some signs, but we only allowed limited signs. And if you're going to allow some signs, you're going to have to allow signs of other forms of free speech. And so that's why we put this amendment in there, to specifically permit those, but to have some limitations. Because right now, they're not allowed, and so individuals, you know, if we try to enforce it, that's problematic. And so basically, you have no limitation.
Right.
So you have people who follow your ordinance and don't put up anything. You have other people who violate your ordinance and can do so with impunity. So what we want to do is have an ordinance that's fair and applies to everybody.
Well, it sounds
And
fair.
so the size, I mean, that's up to council. If you want to allow, you know, more signs, bigger signs, that's up to council. This was parameters that were chosen by David's staff, and I think they're reasonable, especially in a residential area. So if you want to allow more, you can.
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Archibald.
David, banners, Go Big Reds, U of M, U.S. flag, banners of any sort, flags of any sort like that hanging off their house or pole are not included in this, correct?
If they were hanging off of their house, then they would be considered a sign.
They would be
If they're-
considered
If you're
a sign.
hanging it from a flagpole, that could be a different matter.
It's, it is a pole. Oftentimes, people put a Michigan flag off of the dowel, just like they would a U.S. flag, hanging off the front, you know, coming out
That would
off
be
the front of
considered
the
blight.
house. Pardon?
The Michigan flag would be considered blight.
Stop that. Okay, I love James Freed flag. How's that? No, seriously. That's the question, because I think when this came through planning, no one had the intention of, you can't put out something that says go blue or go green or whatever you want it to say when you're supporting a college or a local high school or something like that. So that would be my question. I don't think anybody wants to see that happen, but I understand, at the same token, I don't want to look at a billboard across the street all day long that says, I hate my city council. Just going to pick on that one for fun, because it was in a window downtown once. So I think the problem is, I'm okay with maybe not being able to put a Go Blue sign out at the edge of the street in my yard for 8 months. But if I'm hanging that banner or flag off the dowel off the front of my house, does that become included into that? Because that is a way around it. If I want to put a sign out and I can't put it in my yard and I want to support the Big Reds, I could purchase one of their banners, flags, and hang that. So I guess that's what I'm looking for, some clarification on, would that be allowed?
Well, I think under the way it's currently drafted, the answer's not unless it meets the size limitations. Now, if you want to add another exception where you allow banners on houses, then that's something you can do, but if it says, "I hate city council," versus "Go Big Reds," you're stuck with both of those, right? So you can't discriminate based upon content. So whatever you do, we should be consistent. That's the main point to this.
So then would a United States flag on a dowel coming off the front of my house, not on a flagpole, be considered a banner?
I don't believe that falls within the definition of a sign.
But if it's hanging off the front of my house, is it any different than that other banner? I just want to make sure that down the road, we don't end up into something that all of a sudden we're saying, wait a minute, we just blew that and now you have to put your flag on a flagpole as opposed to, it's very common to attach the flag, I don't want to call it a pole, so I'm calling it a dowel, but to the front of the house.
I have one.
Right. So that's very, very common, and I want to make sure the United States flag or any other flag, as far as I'm concerned, could be considered freedom of speech.
Sure.
So we are, God help us all if what we're doing is passing something that says you can no longer hang your flag unless you put a pole in your yard.
Yeah, I don't think a flag would meet the definition of a sign, but I do believe flags are permitted under the building codes, as I recall. So I think those are actually permitted elsewhere under our ordinances. This would, and under the International Property Maintenance Code, I think flags are designated there, and then there's certain limitations on how they have to be structured. What those are, I couldn't quote you. But no, this is designed to address signs, not flags. So.
Mayor Rep, I know, we can nitpick all night. It's almost 9 o'clock. But you know what, when you start doing all this nitpicking and going, you lose focus of what we really want this to do. And we want some teeth in here so we can enforce something to regulate it, to make it more standardized and consistent. And that's what we need to be looking at. And questions are good, because it helps influence, the vote either way. And this is the first reading. And before we go way out here to the left or anything, just state what is the real reason for putting this before us tonight.
Yeah, the basic reason is so that you have some type of, one, we have to improve our ordinance so that it complies with existing law.
Yes.
And if you want to have limitations on signs, we have to allow all forms of free speech. So that's the point, is we're going to allow them, but come up with some limitations so that you have some limitations in residential areas as well as commercial areas.
Right, okay, thank you. Thanks,
Well,
Mayor Rep.
I certainly agree that we need to do something about our sign ordinances. And I don't have any objection to the size, because I think we've got way too many signs in town, and they're very distracting when you're driving, and they remain in people's yards way over the time they should, or even on the side of the road, way over the time that they should. So that's not a problem. I think that we should probably just move on and give it its first reading. We've got another month before the next meeting. I guess I would like to, though, during that month, the only thing about the freedom of speech sign that bothers me is it's 30 days, and then you have to not have one for 2 months. If you have any other suggestions for that, I'd like to hear them in the next month, because I think that's, if you start going over, and I won't belabor it to death, but if you're talking about the Husky sign and as opposed to something else, the trouble is, if you enforce it on one person's property, then they say, well, they've got that Husky sign, then you're going to go over and tell them they got to take their school sign down. That's where we're going to have a problem.
Yeah,
So I think we've got to clear that up a little bit.
And that's a fair comment. I think the 1 month on and 2 month
Yeah, we
off
need
is
to
just
think
to
about it and see
prevent
if
it
there's
from
some
being a
other-
permanent sign
Yes.
that's erected and then left there for years.
Yeah, so if there's some other way we could address that, I'd appreciate it, but I think for tonight, we should just give it its first reading and kind of digest it for the next month.
Yeah.
So unless there's any other comments, I suggest we take the vote.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
No.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
No.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. That concludes our agenda. City offices will be closed December 22nd, 25th, 29th, and January 1st in observance of the holidays upcoming. And I'd just like to take a moment to wish my fellow council members and all the staff in the audience and all of our residents a Merry Christmas, and I hope everybody has a safe holiday. And then we'll be back in January to have a full new year. And I think it was mentioned to council members in James' report this month that we will be trying to put together a date for a goals session, which I will contact you after the first of the year on that with some suggested dates. So if there's anything else from anyone else?
Yeah, Mayor Rep, the packages that you have in front of you, the council, this is from the Transit Center ornament for your Christmas tree that we would like each of you to take home. If you got a Christmas tree. If you don't, just to put it on the main.
Put it on the city Christmas
Put it on the
tree.
city's Christmas tree.
There
And
you
then-
go, there's one out the hallway.
And Merry Christmas from us all over at the Blue Water Transit. And then also on tomorrow, the MML, I'll be taking part in a newly elected officials training on a panel. So I'll be over there, you know, teaching new council members to be better council members for the future.
Anything else from council? A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Yep.